mothers, or mothers anywhere. So I wrote a letter to the editor. It was just my heart pain. I had no answers, only that we were helpless. But that our love, somehow, it was bigger than all the hatred. Well, other mothers saw the letter and began calling me. I had call after call after call, and they all said, Carol. And I didn't know them, but they knew my first name. Carol, we have to do something. So they told me what to do. And we rented the Lloyd Center, had our first meeting with 70 women. The next week we had 200 women, and a movement was on the way. And we were trying to end the test ban and save our country and our children. Well, all this worked. It wasn't just us. It wasn't just women. It was Linus Pauling, who also had Portland roots. The whole state of Portland, of Oregon, was really great. Anyway, I just say that I think all of us are caught in this. And now war is more horrible than ever, whether it be from nuclear weapons, which can wipe out life on Earth, or from drones, which kill from the sky and terrify people day and night as they hover above. I think this Armistice Day and last, I was remembering after World War I wasn't there, but I feel like I was, because my organization, Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, started in 1915 when a group of women decided they were going to stop this war or do their best, and they did. They gathered in Holland at The Hague. Then they went around to Europe and visited with 18 heads of state and said, let's stop this killing. Let's negotiate or use arbitration. We're going to have to do this again. Let's do it now. And let's build institutions that can help us prevent war in the future. And their ideas, I'm not saying they were just their ideas, but they were very determined about it. A world court, it was a League of Nations then, and international law to prevent war, and they went to work on that. And now we've come a long, long way since then, but war has become worse than ever. But during that period when they were working so hard, the U.S. did something amazing. And I spoke about this last year, and I just found out this year that my organization had something to do with it. But it doesn't matter, because a lot of people felt this way. There's enough of war. We've got to end war. That war was a war to end war. And so every armistice, they gathered, and they rang bells, and the churches rang bells, and everybody renewed their pledge. No more war. Never again. Everybody. The 99%. And then, in 1930 or so, I know that women from my organization went to President Clinton and said, we must have an international law against war. You must get it for us. And other people were also pushing. And the Coolidge went to his Secretary of State. His name was Kellogg. And he and the Foreign Minister of France made a pact, which was to become a treaty, that no nation should go to war again. Disputes were not to be handled with war, negotiation, diplomacy, but not war. And this became a treaty. By the next year, 1929, it went into effect. About 39 nations had ratified it. And our Senate ratified it. I think it was 89-1. There was only one senator that did not ratify this treaty, that we would not go to war again. So war was outlawed. And later there were 54 nations. And then I read in Veterans for Peace, it went up to 80. Well, that was most of the nations of the world then. The rest were all colonies. But it didn't work. It didn't hold because we never joined the League of Nations. The Versailles Treaty was very cruel to the Germans and didn't let them recover. So, in the end, war came again, more ferocious and terrible than ever. And now it's as though we're in endless war, and as though our country is in love with it. It's an aggressor nation now. This is hard to accept, because we don't think of our nation that way. But the nations, there are people that make money out of war. So the ones who have dollar signs in their eyes think about making money. But they're making money on the blood of children, women, men, who are just as precious as our own. So some of us, and I notice David Swanson of Veterans for Peace is one, think we need to resurrect the Kellogg-Briand Pact. It's still law. They just ignored it. But it's there on the books. Every time a nation goes to war, it's a crime. So we're looking for ways to criminalize war. And now we have so many things we didn't have. The United Nations, human rights, the Declaration of Human Rights, the Human Rights Council. We have a criminal court which has teeth. No death penalty, but 30 years in prison. That kind of tames it. I think we have to look at every way we can. This is just one. But I thank you so much, Veterans for Peace, because you know the horrors of war, and you're still suffering from wounds, and yet you're working for peace in very positive ways. I went to your national conference this year in Madison, Wisconsin, and at night the veterans lined up in front of our hotel with lights spilling out their slogan, "Power to the Peaceful." It was so beautiful. And so, power to the peaceful. Not the power of bombs, but the power of love, the power of truth, the power of determination, the power of caring. We have to end war. The world is so beautiful. People, despite all their faults, are precious, and so are the animals and the trees and the flowers. So let's get back to work. We're going to save this world in spite of itself.
This time I would like to invite the veterans among us, any of you who have something on which you'd like to witness or an Armistice Day message. We'll have an open mic.
First of all, I'd like to say we wanted to have a song here. And Dave Rovics, who's been across the world talking about peace and justice all across almost every place I can think of, has offered to come here and play a song for us. And so I want to give him an opportunity to do that as soon as he gets ready. If there's somebody here that has something they want to say, let's have them come up first. Jenica, our Vice President.
Thank you, Dan. I hope I can say this without choking up. But today I watched the ceremonies at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, and I saw the pomp and circumstance. I saw the crisp uniforms. I saw the sharp salutes, and I heard the music, and it was all music once. It just made my heart sing. I was so proud of my country. And then Obama started to speak, and it brought me back to, this is not real, what he's saying. This is not happening. And I felt that I had stepped into an alternate universe. It wasn't real. It was a universe that I did not belong in. And I thought of how many people really fit in that universe and believe all those words and feel proud of their country and know that we're fighting for freedom and democracy. I thought of that. And it got so I had to turn it off. But when I came down here, and I looked and I saw all my fellow veterans and all the women and people who are working toward peace, it made me realize that this is reality. We here are what is going on. We're fighting for no more war. This is real. This is an alternative universe, I guess, but it's a real universe. And I wanted to say what Mike Hasty said at one time to me. He said that we, all the people working for peace, are the cream of the crop. And I want you all to know that you are the cream of the crop, and don't let anyone tell you any differently. Thank you.
There by the water, in the shadow of Tuxton. Sometimes I feel just like that road, empty, standing there still. I like the president, I like the union, I believe in the rights of man. So I signed up when it was time to fight Hitler, and they sent me off to Japan. I couldn't believe it. It was all just so bad. I kept my head down, tried to stay alive. I got shot in the leg, took me out of the action, so I was lucky enough to survive. I came home from the war, met a girl named Maria. We had ourselves a son. When I first saw Jim's face, the first thing I thought, I hope he never has to carry a gun. It was a long time ago, another life that I had, a little boy who called me Dad. terrible dreams of my time overseas, but otherwise, life was all right. I had a job and a wife and a fine little lad with eyes so cheery and bright. When his number came up, I said, let's move up north to Halifax, what do you say? But my Jim wouldn't have it. He said, if I'm gonna be drafted, I don't wanna run away. It was a long time ago, another life that I had, a little boy who called me Dad. Just a few months, the letters stopped coming. Then one morning, a knock on the door. Two nervous young men handed me a flag, said your son died in the war. He gave his life for his country, is what the man said. I didn't believe it, and neither did I. I closed the front door, dropped the flag on the floor, and I sat down in Jim's room and cried. It was a long time ago, another life that I had, a little boy who called me Dad. It's about a year when my wife said to me, you look so much like our little Jim. She had to go, I don't blame her, you know. I also remind me of him. Now it's been 40 years, I'd be a grandpa by now, but instead I just sit here alone. No one calls much these days, but anytime the phone rings, I think maybe the boy's coming home. It was a long time ago, another life that I had, a little boy who called me Dad.
Now, if anybody else has something they want to say, it's an open mic. We'd like you to come up and tell us something. Okay.
Ollie Neer wrote a song about 30 years ago. We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are young and old together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are young and old together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are anti-nuclear people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are anti-nuclear people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a land of many colors, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a land of many colors, and we are singing, singing for our lives. And of course, we're singing for peace. Thank you.
I always come to these things thinking I know what I'm going to say. But it always changes the minute I get in front of folks and hear what they have to say, what's coming from their hearts too. The word "end all wars." What a name, what a concept, what an idea. Something a person could really give their life for. The word "end all wars." What a betrayal. What a betrayal to all that sacrifice. That today we are at war in 8 or more countries, overtly and covertly, and God knows how many. In Africa alone, there's supposed to be 35 bases with troops or drones or both right now. In Africa. Does anybody here even know about that? A few of us do, but outside this circle, how many? The long struggle requires eternal vigilance. Our lot is to bear each other up as we take on this struggle that has no end and has no respite. It is what we can do and what we must do. Today I celebrate many things that are happening that are positive in the world despite all of this madness, and I try and bear that in mind. As long as I am here, each day bears its beauty as well as the horrible news that comes to me on that screen. And from people's mouths here in the States that are undergoing such austerity. I had a friend just tell me his food stamps, which were his only means of subsistence, were just cut from $200 to $0 instead of $11 down, like everybody else. The individual struggles here and abroad are endless. I think that of all of the travels I've taken and all of the things that I've seen, that the most important message is that we've all got to turn to each other to bear each other up, because this is a heavy load. We try and ignore it sometimes and trivialize it sometimes because it gets so onerous, because it gets so big. But the fact is that if you don't have other people to help you along with it, it's going to crush your ass. So in this time where we recognize the sacrifice of those who died to end war and meditate upon peace and the causes of peace, let us not forget to turn to each other, to bear each other up, because in that remembrance is much sadness.
I'm Will Poole, U.S. Navy vet, World War II. And I'd like to say this to Carol particularly, this carryover. My mother was president of the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom Seattle chapter for a number of years. Also, going back clear to World War I, I had a cousin who opposed the war vigorously. He was tipped off, fortunately, in advance that a vigilante group was coming to lynch him for this particular action. Now, I want to say this also about what's happening to our veterans today. I listened to Democracy Now! This morning. 22 veterans and military commit suicide every day. There are more dying now than were dying in the war in Afghanistan. And there's an aimlessness. And I want you to think back to January 17th, 1941. Most of you were not here. Carol was there. I was there, of course, at that time. The 4 freedoms. Freedom of speech, freedom of belief, freedom from fear, and freedom freedom from want and freedom from fear. I don't like to mix up the order there because they're extremely important. Essentially what happened in the Second World War was a disruption of the New Deal and everything that it stood for. And I want to remind you of a few things. The social compact that entails every single one of us. All right, we got Social Security out of that, the 8-hour day, a certain basic support for people who were unemployed, unemployment compensation, and most important, rights, the rights of people, working people, to organize and form organizations of their own. There were a lot of things. I went to school on the GI Bill. Without it, I'd hate to think what had happened to me. But very few people realize today that many of our colleges and universities were free from tuition. And the reason they were free from tuition was the New Deal commitment to young people, particularly Eleanor Roosevelt's commitment at that particular time. At the end of the Second World War, we intended to pick it up with things like universal health coverage, which was a very strong commitment. And you can think back what happened. By the way, the Canadian system, the initial proposal was 18 pages long. Any fool that had half of the education could pick up and read it and understand. Look what was presented to people in this country, thousands of pages, which no one could comprehend. And look what we're faced with at the present time. So what I want to add at this particular moment is the social compact is extremely important. When we think of demonstrating for peace, we have to include them. I must add that I was very active in the labor movement for quite a number of years. So you're getting a message on that. The end of the Second World War didn't bring us peace, that freedom from fear in the organization. What it brought us was a military-industrial establishment. It also brought us Hiroshima, which was really the opening shot of the Cold War. So we have to think comprehensively all the way through, and we need to form alliances among not only the peace group, environmental groups particularly, labor movement and so on, if we're ever going to reverse the situation that's facing us today. Thank you for your attention.
Anyone else?
As a civilian and person of color, I can remember hearing the story from my grandfather and my father about how discrimination in the military was. And then during the World War II and the Vietnam War, how this country sought out young men of color to send to Vietnam and to other places of war, conflict, because they felt that these individuals would not be missed if they lost their lives. My brother was a career Army sergeant. He had 3 terms in Vietnam. The third time that he went, he told me, because I was so upset with him, because I don't believe in war, conflict, and he told me that he had to go because they were sending 18 and 19-year-old boys that had no concept of what they were getting into. And it was his responsibility to make sure that as many as could would come home. My brother passed away January of this year.
And it was very difficult for me because he had a military funeral. I honor all veterans, and I honor my brother for what he believed in. But it's very difficult for me to be a person of peace and to continue to support the wars and the conflicts that the United States continues to put our young and our old men and women in the situation to where it's abnormal for them to be in. I watched a program, repeat program on Oregon Public Broadcasting yesterday about Vietnam War veterans coming home to Oregon and Washington, and the continual problems that they are having. And I just think, what a waste. What a waste of these human beings to have to see what they had to see and endure what they had to endure. And for what purpose? If we were going to war to protect this country and the citizens, I could say, I understand. But I'm not seeing that evidence. And if anyone can show me that that's what we're going to war for, then maybe I'll change my mind. But until then, I'm going to continue to work for peace and justice. Thank you. My name is Lucinda Tate. I'm a member of the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom.
We are just about out of the time that the folks here at Pioneer Square have allotted us. So, anybody have a last thought?
Thank you, Richard.
Welcome everybody, and Veterans Day. Folks, I thank our veterans for our service, and there is a message, why, the military-industrial complex and the wars must end. We've seen, way too many, of our fellow brothers and sisters brought back and flag draped coffins. And here is a scenario I want people to understand. No matter what demonstrations manifest, either as Occupy or May Day, and the stuff that the demonstrations for social equality for all people and healthcare reform, and for money for schools and education. We have to understand, these goals will not come by sending our soldiers off to fight in a foreign war and abroad. If we are to gain any more of civil rights and human dignity and true reform in all forms of healthcare and work and labor, it is not going to come from a foreign war abroad. Thank you.
Thank you all for suiting up and showing up. I hope some of you will consider one of our two events later on today. If you missed them earlier, I'll repeat them briefly again. At 6 o'clock at the West Cafe at Southwest 12th and Jefferson, the Returning Veterans Project and Soldier Songs and Voices will be having a little presentation. Stop by there, have a drink, have appetizer, dessert, or something like that. And then at 7:30 at the First Unitarian Church, which is at 12th and Salmon, till all need for witness cease, which will be a reading of a prose poem in 3 parts, commemorating the almost 100th anniversary of the end of Armistice and the end of the First World War. Thank you again. We'll see you next year.